right. Hi, Zach. How are you?
Hi, Douglas. How are you?
Doing fine, thank you. Thank you for coming on the show. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on the show.
You are, where are you? You're in a garage or something, right? Or a shed?
Well, it looks like a shed. It's actually the side. It's actually a friend of mine. He's a prepper, and he has a little bunker thing in case the world blows up. And it's the only place I could get peace and quiet from the dogs and the goats and the cats and everything. So
Oh,
yeah.
like one of those safe rooms?
No, there's nothing safe about this room, I can tell you. But it's yeah, something like that. It's in case the world falls apart. I think he needs a bit more structural integrity maybe to make it survive, but it works.
Well, is there, 50 jumbo packs of toilet paper and enough food, canned food for a month in there or something?
No, no, no. He doesn't need toilet paper. Because they go au naturel. They probably use leaves, so they're fine with that. And canned food. Well, they forage for the land, but they have emergency rations of olive oil and things like that. That's in case they have the nice things in life for the stored here. Boxes of chocolates and things that
Oh,
they
well, good.
need. Yeah, yeah. They're sort of glam preppers, if you know what I mean.
So on your bio it says that you're of Greek descent, you grew up in London, and you studied marine biology for a number of years.
Yes. Yeah, I grew up in London. I went to school there, hence the English accent. If you want, I can speak with a Greek accent. It's not a problem. Somebody has to, but I don't. And I've lived around. Marine biology is it's a great career. It just doesn't pay you very much money, but you travel around the world, and I've certainly done that and lived around lots of really exotic and lovely locations, and some not so exotic. It's very cold. Northern Scotland is extremely cold, as is the Alaska, but it can be amazing to view. Um, and Yeah, I've studied that in molecular biology, and that's what I did. Grew up in
What's
London.
what's the weather like in Greece in the winter? It's not tropical, but it's not freezing cold, right?
It is like California. It's very much like Southern California, um, except it's not desert, it's hot Mediterranean. So you have, in the winter, it can be very, very cold. You can get some really brutal snow drifts and things like that. But the winters are short and the summers are long. So it's basically like Southern California weather with a bit more like, say, Crete is like La Jolla. It's a bit richer in soil, and Athens is more like LA, where it's a bit more dry and sort of desolate.
So you've also became a writer. Did you start writing a little later in your life, or were you always writing?
Well, I've always been writing. I just didn't realize I was writing. I was a bit like Happy Gilmore. He thought he was a hockey player, but actually he was a golfer. So it's like yeah, I've been writing all my life. I wrote my first story when I was 19, and I just wrote it by hand. Everything's by hand, and I kept them down there. And it was sort of a cross between a diary and stories, and I sort of found it sort of a therapeutic,
Okay.
cathartic maybe.
So the book that you're promoting now is The Crescent and the Cross.
Yes, it's a series. It's the Vivelis Chronicles, and the Crescent and the Cross is the first the first in a series of books. And yes, the Crescent and the Cross it is. Yeah.
Okay, tell us a little about it.
Well, it's basically based around the two brothers, and they are in set in the 1400s with the fall of the Byzantine Empire, and it's really about the choices that people make. It's telling the story of my people, for want of a better term, but it's about uh, the choices that we make. So we're not all born inherently good or born inherently bad. We become good or bad, or we become weak or strong, or however you want to define it, because everyone's version of good is different, and bad as well. So that it's about two brothers, and they both start off as friends, and they go off to discover the wider world. It follows their ages from 14 to 27, and they go to the capital of the dying Byzantine Empire. They're from Crete, which is where I'm originally from, and there they meet Katerina, who's like the daughter of a politician, the Secretary of State, for want of a better term. They both fall for her, and the three of them decide the fate of the two worlds, with a couple of other characters thrown around it. And yeah, it's really, that's the basic story in itself. And it sort of has the classic story of love, honor, betrayal, the usual stuff, but in a setting that people don't really think about. That we think of the concepts of multicultural societies, of insurance systems, of banking systems, of universities, of women's rights, the fork, all these sort of things that we take for granted in our society today came from this period of history, from this period of Greek history, or Byzantine history, or Eastern Roman, however you want to look at it, as opposed to the ancient world, which people forget about. I mean, 1400s was only 600 years ago, whereas, Sparta and all of that sort of stuff was 3,000 years ago. So it's quite a big difference in time. People don't quite understand that sometimes.
How much do you think we have changed as a human race? I don't mean technologically, but as our needs, our desires, our drives, our passions, our prejudices.
Oh, we haven't changed at all. We're exactly the same. We're driven by the need for love, for approval, for recognition. We have people who have frailties of vanity and fear, and that fear creates war, and those that relax that they don't create war. I mean, look at some of the great empires in history. They all come from freezing cold climates. Of course they come from freezing cold climates, because they want to go to the tropical islands. Do you ever hear of tropical islands creating empires? No, they're happy where they are. Why do they want to go somewhere else? So it's like, it's in that sense, I don't think we've changed very much. I think some of the dynamics have changed. For instance, the concepts of race are different now than they were 600 years ago. We didn't have the concepts of the history that we say in the Western Hemisphere of colonial empires. You had a different thing then. It was maybe based more around religion. So, for instance, you would say certain words. The swear words today weren't swear words then. If you wanted to insult someone, you would call them "damn you" with the saint's bones or something, rather than some sort of sexual connotation. So there are different viewpoints of what is regarded as good and bad, but the drivers behind it are all the same.
Well, I think we are fighting less over religion now, but I think it's still part of our struggle as a human race.
Well, was it Marx that said that religion is the opium of the masses?
Right.
It's a way to, I think I've got to be very careful what I say here, but it's a way to control people in many ways. But religion is also, it's a guidebook. I mean, if you look at all the basic stats, don't kill, don't murder, I mean, don't steal, honor thy mother and father, treat your family right. Basically all religions say the same thing fundamentally.
They do.
But maybe we argue about whether this guy who was on the cross, was he really the Son of God? Does God exist? Or do we have a bunch of different gods? Or whatever it is, whatever that is, it is. But the fundamentals are treat people well. And, what was once, what they say, one man's freedom fighter is another man's, revolutionary, or whatever the term is. I think religion is losing its importance in terms of how we frame ourselves. But the tenets of faith and having a code hasn't changed.
So how long has your book been out?
This book has been out for 1 year. Not 1 year, actually. No, it's been out for 10 months. And of course, the launch happened just as we went into the lockdown, which was great. I know, ironic. But I was determined to have it released before May 29th of last year. That was a psychological thing for me. I had to be done before that date. So we released it in May the 11th, I think, last year. And we have another one coming out very soon, and there's a sort of novella in between. So it's not. It's been around for a while. We've had some good reviews. I've had some great sales with it so far. It's yeah. It was. Everyone said it was a great achievement. I just wrote the book.
Are you traditionally published or are you self-published?
Traditionally published.
Can you give us a reason why somebody would want to go traditional versus self? Is it purely preference, or is there actually one that's better than the other? Because I see good and bad on both of them. It seems like a kind of a double-edged sword, depending on how you look at it.
I think the first thing about being traditionally published over being self-published is that someone has validated you and vouched for you. And I don't care what anyone says, that is a big deal for any artist, because we're all frail and we all have egos, and that's the reality. Whatever anyone says, oh, I don't care about my book being sold. Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do. Everyone does. So by having someone look at it and say, hey, we think this is going to make some money, or it's worth us putting our time and effort behind it, is a validation. It's a big validation, which is something I didn't really think about. I wrote the book accidentally after my father died. I'd been talking about the idea about it, and I said, okay, I'll write the book. I wrote the book, and I didn't think it was going to be published. I had no idea I could write, I suppose. I didn't really have any pretensions for that. So in that sense, it was interesting to see that I had a number of people that were interested in it. What I also discovered is with traditional publishing, whether it's a small, there are different types of publishers. So there's the big five, and then there's the medium size, and then there's the really small independents, and then self-publishing. The thing is with the publishers is you get an editor, you get some PR depending on the size of the company, depending how much you have to put the effort into, and depending on whether there's pandemics around as well, that does help change things.
Yeah.
But in terms of the fact that I saw some very clear issues about writing a book and how to write a book. So I could tell a story, but I realized that I need to understand some of the finer details about flow, sometimes clunky dialogue, excess word use. I mean, writers, I think if we're all honest with ourselves, especially ones that write anything that's remotely got information in it, they want to sort of mentally masturbate. Hey, I know all this stuff. I've done all this research. I know all these things, and la 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 la. And you don't really realize you're doing it, because to you, you're talking from a position where you know lots of information. So you're trying to sort of almost put it down on paper to give people the background. But actually, people don't care about the background. What they want to know about is, who is this guy? Where's he going? What's he doing? Is she nice? Is it going to work out with them? What's this guy going to do here? Things don't change. Whether it's the Odyssey, the Bible, the Iliad, you name it, Mahabharata, every single book in famous Shakespeare, they're all the same. It's all about love, honor, betrayal. Do they do the right thing at the right time? And so you're telling a story without giving too much information, and having a publisher to show that to you it's a great thing, because I've learned a lot since that moment. Actually, they didn't edit that much of the book in terms of changing the story or anything, but they taught me how to, now I'm writing book 2, how much quicker this is going to be.
Okay. Well, on that note, we do have to wrap it up. We are out of time. Do you have a website that you want to give out?
Yes, I do, actually. It's www.varkaris, VARKARIS.com. And I also have a YouTube channel on that's a link, and it's called Foxhole Philosophy and Warrior Poets. And it's about scenes of different periods of history told through the eyes of different ordinary people in the ground. Like we have one it's sort of audio visual, so it'd be something like, so there's 2 people stuck in a foxhole in Stalingrad, and it says, do you know that Germany and Russia have the same national animal, the eagle?
But us is better. You know why? Because us has two heads, and you can see left and right. The Germans only see one way. That is why we shall prevail and they shall fail. Anyway, on that note.
On that note, thank you so much for coming on this show.